We will share the screen. I think we're sharing the screen. Let's make sure. Are we sharing? We are. Okay, let's share that screen. Start screen share, and we are off. All right, so this should be recording. We are talking managing system projects. So in that little exercise we did, you all realized what those top characteristics of a good systems analyst are. The first one you all decided was this crazy idea of communication. And boy, am I learning a lot about communication. Communication is definitely something that can stifle a project, can stifle a relationship. Do you agree? Yeah. Whether it be business, personal, whatever. We don't really need to look at objectives because we're going to cover them. So introduction, we'll learn about project planning, estimating, scheduling, monitoring, reporting, and the use of project management software. We'll look at a couple of those. Also learn how to control and manage project changes as they occur. Well, we've already said the greatest challenge we have is scope creep, right? So scope creep brings in change. Boy, it would be nice if that new program just did this and just did that. Oh, it can just do that for another 6 months and $60,000, right? So then they decide whether it will just do that or not. So a successful project, according to this slide, must be completed on time, within budget, and deliver a quality product that satisfies users and meets requirements. Okay, I'm going to challenge this. First of all, we've seen some data in the previous class that said, what was it? 75% of all projects aren't completed on time, within budget, etc. Does that mean if they're really completed a month later, they're not a successful project? Not necessarily, right? It's funny that we use this word success because as I learned last night in my parenting class, the United States definition of success, is very, very narrow. What do we think of when we think of success? Money or?
Happiness.
Oh, happiness. Yes, money is definitely going to make me happy. Just go out and Google how many multimillionaires kill themselves a year. Okay, next. What else? Fame? Recognition? Wasn't it Warhol that said 15 minutes of fame? Does that mean you're successful? Great, I was on a reality show. Am I successful? Maybe just for that amount of time, right? So let's be careful with that word successful. It really is defined in my book as, did the project meet its needs? Okay. If it is over budget, can it make it up in its total cost of ownership over its life cycle? Do we take on projects that have a zero balance return? Yeah, we take on projects that we may lose money or that we know we're going to lose money, mandated things in our industry. If it satisfies users and meets requirements, if it can do that, it's a successful project. Okay. Now, granted, there are companies like Microsoft that when they start marketing the next operating system like Vista, and it's 6 months later than they said it was going to be, they're going to incur a lot of cost in continuing to market, right? Windows Vista, yep, promised it to you 6 months ago, but it's going to be better when we finally deliver it. So project manager, project leader, project coordinator. So project managers typically perform 4 main tasks. They plan, schedule, monitor and control, and report. So this is the person managing. This is not necessarily the analyst, right? So the analyst may have come in, done all the research, figured out if the project's viable, taken it all the way through managerial approval, and then steps out. Because now all I need is a supervisor, per se. I've given you all the documentation. You know what the project needs to do. Now manage it.
Is that usually someone from in-house that's already has a job there?
It can be someone in-house. We can outsource the whole darn thing. So I've worked on a project where we actually took an existing software. This was for our non-conformance report project out at Columbia. We did a software called Documentum. I don't know if they're even still in business. One would hope. EMC Documentum Solutions. So what we did is we took their solution, fairly new when we did this years ago, and we highly customized it. Now, anytime you take existing software and highly customize it, you can run into problems, correct? Okay, and over the course of this class, we'll talk about those challenges that we got. So, but planning, you know, if we're talking questionnaires, so this is during the what phase? During the discovery phase, figuring out if the project's even viable, right? Figuring out what's needed. Who are we going to survey? Users first, right? Users first. Then management. You know, yeah, we want them to be involved a little bit. They're going to pay the bill. So in this case, we'd start work on a questionnaire. We'd prepare the questionnaire. Questionnaire gets approved. We distribute it. Now, realize with questionnaires, we might take that through a prototyping stage, which means I take the questionnaire out to a few people whose answers I don't want to keep, right? I want to make sure that the questionnaire is finalized before I distribute it to my survey group that I really want the answers from. Can I make a questionnaire leading? Can I lead a question?
Yeah.
You bet. Let's try that. I'm going to give you all a choice right now. Okay? Here's your choice. You all, as a group, can all earn a C in this class today, never having to show up, never having to do any more work. Or you can all earn grades anywhere from A to F. What do you choose? All right. Now, after class, y'all knock it out yourselves. Are we going to come up to an answer? Not necessarily. Let me give you a real life leading question. COCC at one point was looking at and did take summer term from 8 weeks to 10 weeks. Any idea why they did that? Yeah, that would be a good thing. But no, they did it for financial reasons. At 10 weeks, it becomes a real term, right? Financial aid and funding from our funding sources becomes more legitimate. So in finding out, now we need to know, though, will students take 10-week summer term courses? So I don't remember exactly how the question was worded, but it was very misleading. It wasn't, would you prefer 8 or 10-week term? It was more like, if we took classes, summer classes, and only made them available 10 weeks, would you take them? Am I going to get a different answer? Yeah, because you all are looking at it going, well, wait a minute, I have a plan. I'm going to finish my degree in 2 years, which means I have to take some summer classes to do it. Of course, I'm still going to take them. So you mark the yes box because there wasn't a give me another alternative box, right? So we can lead questions into the answers we want. We want to be very careful that a question is not leading. That's why we might prototype it to see if we get the same answer from a small group. So, you know, distribute the questionnaire. They all come back. We await return of the questionnaires. They're all returned. We start tabulating questionnaire responses. Today, questionnaires. You want to do a questionnaire? Do it in Google Docs. They have forms with a bunch of questions that you can do. Or most people use SurveyMonkey. Okay, you can sign up for free. I think you can do up to 10 questions on a survey or whatever for free. And you get a downloaded spreadsheet with all the submissions as they come in. Cool? Yeah. Why do we do it this way instead of giving you a piece of paper? It saves time and money. Now, realistically, though, if I have somebody beating the streets asking you 5 questions, You won't give them the time of day. I think it depends, you know, but it really depends on what the survey is, how long it's going to take, etc. Right?
Well, if you're on the street doing it, you're not targeting the right group of people, maybe.
Well, unless your target group is population. Now you say I'm not targeting the right group of people. Well, if I'm targeting a demographic of males between 25 and 35, can I target that group on the street? Possibly, you know. Hi, sir, are you between 25 and 35? No? Okay, sorry, moving on. Sir, 25 and 35? Yes. Would you be willing to do a short 5-question survey? And I'll give you this no spill coffee cup. Right. Yeah, we need to tantalize. So project planning, plan. We've heard that word a lot. Identify tasks. One important variable is the size of the project, because the amount of work increases dramatically as the project scope increases. All right, could you guys today during class write a complete project documentation for building me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? If I give you the peanut butter in the jar, the jelly in the jar, and pre-made bread, could you do that in the time you have left? Please say yes. Come on now. All right, just checking. I don't need anything fancy. All right. Put down 2 pieces of bread, 1 peanut butter, 1 jelly, put them together, hand it to me. Now. Oh, okay. Well, that's for you to decide. You're identifying the task. Go find utensils. Let's see. I bet I can spread peanut butter with these. All right, these 2 fingers right here. Now, can you do that same project before class ends if I said, make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with no materials? No? Okay, what if I say, give it to me from planting the peanut, planting the strawberry, and planting all the materials for the bread. Now, can you do that in the next 2 hours? Is that a bigger project? Much bigger project, you bet. So we need to look at the size of the project. A project that is twice as large will be more than twice as complex. Now, I demonstrated this in class already when we looked at just the communication matrix of adding 1 more person to our communication circle, right? So if communication did more than double, doesn't it make sense that when the project complexity doubles, that the project becomes more than twice as complex? You bet. So we identify tasks. Multiple interactions can lead to misunderstandings and delay. We got to look at that project creep. Capabilities of project team members also affect time requirements. Here's the thing. I have a database administrator in my office. They are going to build a SQL database. Except we decided to go open source this time. So we're going to go MySQL. Is there going to be a learning curve for my Microsoft SQL Server database administrator to learn MySQL? You bet. I got some great programmers, except this time we're going to use a brand new programming language called Python. Is that going to take more time? Yeah. What does Brooks' Law say? Look it up.
Adding manpower to late software project makes it later.
Say that again because it's worthwhile hearing.
Adding manpower to a late software project makes it later.
Adding manpower to a late software project makes it later. Well, we know that just because of the fact that, first of all, there's a learning curve for anyone that comes on to our team who hasn't been there from the get-go, right? Does a team develop its own culture? Yeah. You know, can there be a clique or cliques that get started? Yeah. So planning, estimate task completion time and cost, person days. Person days. Now let's be realistic here. First of all, what's a standard person day? How many hours? 8 hours. Okay. Somebody please Google average productive hours in a day of work. Average productive hours in a day of work.
Three hours a day.
3 hours a day. So, do we adjust our person hours? We do. Don't forget they're going to be on Facebook. What did we say? An hour a day, right? If it's not blocked. And if it is blocked, they'll just find a proxy server and get back on. Right? So, person days though. Now, there's a lot of variables that can go into person days. First of all, we can go to HR and say, okay, for the last year, you know, what's the average hours this person worked in a week? Which means they took time off, kids got sick, they got sick, appointments, whatever, right? So if they're on our team, we want to use a realistic number. Then we're going to want to adjust it for productivity. Does that all make sense? But we can say, just for means, we'll just use 8 hours. Okay? But maybe that person has a full-time job and they're only allowed to work 2 hours a day on our project. We then need to take the tasks that they're doing and figure out how many total days it's going to take in 2-hour chunks. Does that make sense? Can you see how quickly we can take a project and affect it by thinking we can get it done in a shorter amount of time? Did you all think about that? I mean, first number that came was 8 hours. Wouldn't you think logically to throw 8 hours in there? Now that I've given you one more variable, go look at the productivity of an employee, average hours a day. Would that change your number? By quite a bit. Plus, if you've worked in an office for a while with people, you know how well they work or don't work, right? You know, there's that one person who works like an hour a day and spends 7 hours by the water cooler and is rising in the company faster than you are. All right. Office politics? I don't know. Anyway, some tasks can be divided evenly, so it is possible to use different combinations of time and people up to a point. In most systems analysis tasks, however, time and people are not interchangeable. Remember my analogy on having a baby? Are time and people interchangeable? No. Project planning. So this calculation here is going to give us a little idea of how we would do this. Okay. So here's the thing. Estimated task completion time and cost. Best case scenario, probable case scenario, worst case estimate, weight, expected task duration. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the lecture. We're going to come back and look at this. Okay. And I'm going to break you up into 4 teams. I'm going to give you a basic project that you should know how to do. And you all are going to calculate how much time you're going to need to do the project. You might be surprised by your results. We'll see. So project planning, factors affecting time and cost estimates, the project size, of course, we've talked about. The size, larger, more resources, the scope of the project. Are we building just the database as our project, or are we building an enterprise resource planning system? What are our resources? Are we using consultants? Prior experience with similar projects or systems? There is an advantage to bring in, a lot of times, industries, like my friend Ryan's industry, okay? CRM, let's see how well he's marketing these days. Oops. CRM consulting. So if you notice, certified CRM consultants, or let's even take it down further. Let's go Microsoft Dynamics CRM Consulting. So, consulting group, Clutch, McGladrey does it. These consultants. Oh, Ryan, where are you, sir? Maybe he's got more business than he knows what to do with. Dynamic CRM Consulting. He might. He stays pretty busy. But if you notice, there's some specialized consultants. What do you think the advantage might be of hiring a consultant versus you having to learn how to use the program before you can make changes to it? Can we save a lot of money? Yeah, these are folks that do that every day. So scheduling is a specific timetable. Project scheduling also involves selecting and staffing the project team, assigning specific tasks to team members or to group of team members, and arranging for other necessary resources. Now, one of the standard things that people forget to do in scheduling work is they forget to schedule meetings. You know, we're going to meet every week. Don't forget that if you're expecting somebody to work 10 hours this week on a project and they're only allotted 10 hours that week, and I've given them work to do for 10 hours that week, are they going to show up for the meeting of 2 hours? No, they're going to choose. Now, me, I'd rather show up for a meeting than do work. That's me. But that puts me 2 hours behind for that week, correct? Must balance task and time estimates, sequences. We'll talk a lot about sequencing. And then, of course, several graphical planning aids can help. Okay? Pert charts, for example. Okay? Or Gantt charts. So the nice thing that we like about Gantt charts, so here's a Gantt chart, and you notice it's fairly detailed. We're going to develop a plan. We're then going to give ourselves assigned tasks. We're going to obtain hardware. We're going to program, install the hardware, convert files. If you notice, some of these tasks are being done sequentially or concurrently, right? So concurrently together, sequentially, if you notice down here, well, we can't convert the files till we install the software. And in this case, what they're saying is we can't write most of the user manual until the majority of programming is done. We've installed the hardware, we've converted the files so that we can start taking screenshots of, you know, how to use the program. Does that make sense? Today, I would ascertain we're most likely not going to write a user manual. We are going to create what?
YouTube channel.
Instructional videos, a YouTube channel, whatever the case may be. You know, if it's proprietary, we're not going to put it out on YouTube. But we're going to do that because people tend to be able to watch the videos and learn. So Pert or CPM charts, the program evaluation review technique, Pert, or critical path method. Today, they're pretty much the same thing, okay? The distinctions between the two have pretty much disappeared. We call it a Pert CPM chart. Okay, so overview of one of those, called a bottom-up technique. So we do it by task, okay? And we assign certain variables or certain givens to a task. Then we lay it out graphically. Now, this becomes much more detailed than the Gantt chart. If you notice, the Gantt chart was pretty easy to read, right? Okay, your project team most likely will need a Pert chart. Management for management reports, progress reports, give them a Gantt chart. This is where we're at. Okay. Now, let me back up real quick because what I've seen given is this is the project. Okay. Time in days. You might convert these days to dates. Okay. So here we are. If we started at January 1st, January 20th, right? Do the math. February 8th, something like that. You get where I'm going with this? Then what we do is we would say, I've even seen folks, I used to do this in consulting. This is the green line, where we should be. This is today's date, except we're still back here. Here's the red line. Does that make sense? Instantly, someone can see what's been done, where we're at in the project, okay, if we can estimate that, okay, which means the sad thing is, let's say we installed the hardware, we've written the user manual, but we're having trouble converting files, okay? We can be all the way back here, even though we've completed tasks up here. Does that make sense? So you put that line, that actual line, usually right where the last task is that you completed along the series. Does that make sense? So maybe something's holding it up, back orders, whatever the case may be. So project tasks, once you have the task, their duration, and the order in which they must be performed, you can calculate the time that it will take to complete the project. That's one of the reasons why we like this. It tends to be much more accurate. So this is what a PERT or CPM box might look like. We're going to give it a task name. We're going to identify the task by an ID, normally a sequential number. Okay. Now, when we start breaking tasks into subtasks, okay, that's when we'll go task ID 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.2.1, 1.2.1.3. You get where I'm going with that? Can you see how complex we can get and how granular we can get? Sometimes what we'll do is we'll have, I've seen this done, where we have a 0 level PERT chart, which just has all the big components, okay, that would match a Gantt chart, okay? And then we break that PERT chart out into multiple PERT charts for each task that then gets subdivided into other tasks. Does that make sense? Okay. Y'all kind of following along? Haven't lost you yet. Good. Start day date, task duration, normally in days, person days, and first day, finish day and date. One thing to remember, folks, that people tend to make mistakes on: if I finish a task today, I'm most likely not starting the next task until tomorrow, next week. Yeah, I'm going on vacation. So task patterns, we have dependent tasks, okay? A dependent task is a task where another task must be completed before we can do that task. Okay? Let's say I had a task of getting married. A dependent task might be find a girl to marry. Just an idea, right? Multiple successor tasks. So concurrent, predecessor, successor. Okay? Concurrent can be done together. A predecessor task before and a successor task after. Multiple predecessor tasks, we can have a ton of them where we say this must be done before that. This week on your homework, you're going to be given, okay, some of you have looked at it, you're going to be given a description to come up with a very small PERT chart, okay? We're going to definitely look at that once the homework's graded, because you will be surprised at how many people can interpret that data so differently as to come up with different days. But there are key words that you look for in there. Okay? You know, after this is done, before that is done, while this is being done. Let's go back and look at this. While I'm doing this, I can do that. Concurrent, predecessor, or successor? Concurrent. Concurrent. Before I can do this, I must do that. Predecessor. After this is done, I can do that. Successor. But remember, we can have tasks where multiple things need to be done before something's done. Okay. So complex task patterns, when various task patterns combine, you must study the facts carefully in order to understand the logical sequence. Can you imagine how big these PERT charts get? Do you see why we give a Gantt chart to our stakeholders, whether it be management or maybe we're doing this for the marketing department and the marketing manager calls and says, where are you at in our project? By the way, should someone ever call and ask where you're at in a project? If they do, what are you failing to do?
Get them to communicate.
Communicate. Yeah. In whatever way. Project schedule will not be accurate unless the underlying task is logically correct.
Where's this project? Where the created Pert chart?
It's either in this week's or maybe it's in next week's homework based on the personal
Probably
trainer.
next week. I'm gonna
So.
do this week's.
So here's an example. All right. So start day. We're going to start on day 1. We're going to finish on day 10. We're going to obtain authorization for the project. Woo! Yay, we did that. Now we're going to hire an analyst to analyze the project. They're saying that's going to take 30 days. Then together we can plan training and arrange logistics. Okay. So what they're saying is hire an analyst. I would say there's probably something in between here. Okay. But this gives us a cheesy example. Here we can do the training and arrange logistics at the same time. However, if we look at this, this is 5 days. We can do these two what? Concurrently. Okay. We can do these concurrently. However, we can only do the training, announcing the training once the logistics has been arranged. Can we announce training on the 6th day? No, because we don't know where the training is going to happen. Make sense? Hope so. So the critical path or slack time, if any task along the critical path falls behind schedule, the entire project is delayed. What do you think happens if we lose 2 days at the beginning of the project?
Add 2 days at the end. Yeah.
You think so?
Or maybe more.
Yeah, that's usually what happens. You start falling off on a project timeline. First of all, most likely someone was too aggressive with the project timeline. We then would go adjust the project timeline to show the new estimated completion date. But what we find is as those things happen, because every time we have a project creep or an enhancement, 3 months into the project, somebody says, boy, it needs to do this. The project team, the project management approves it, knowing it's going to take an additional week. We insert that component in there, and the project just got laid out a week. Okay? And most likely, all of those are going to affect the project exponentially towards the end. So critical path includes all tasks that are vital to the project schedule. If necessary, a project manager can reassign resources to keep the project on schedule. But what do we know about that law we just read about? Yeah, if we're adding more human resource, we're most likely going to take the project even further off schedule. So let's go back and look at here. Notice what we have here. So normally we'll use a red arrow for our critical path. So our critical path here is 1, 2, 4, and 5. Why? Because the critical path always represents the longest time through the project. That's where we get our critical path.
Is that 5 turned into a real long, that would become a critical path?
Well, if the 5 turned into anything longer than 25 days, then yes. Okay, but if this became 20, it's still not the critical path. It's the longest path through the system. Make sense? Cool. So transforming a task list into a PERT chart, here is the easiest way I've found to do this. Take it off the computer. Go to a wall. Each box, each task becomes a sticky, right? We get that from our task list that we've set. Well, we're going to have to build a database. We're going to have to do this. We're going to have to do that. We start putting them in order. Easier to do here, isn't it? And once it's done, we just throw it in the computer. I'm always reminded when I teach this class. So there's still a very small project. We can develop a plan. We can assign the team. We can obtain hardware. Okay. And go through the project. This is not correct. Duration 17 days. 4, 7. Oh, okay. Because these are what? They're the longest duration through. How many paths does this project have? Two paths. Two paths. What we're saying is we can assign the team while we're obtaining the hardware. We can do those together. Okay. Then the sequential, once we assign the team, we can develop a plan. We can still do the hardware. While we're doing that, we need to find the longest. Notice that's where it comes in right there. Because here, finish day 130. Here, finish day 73 or whatever it is. Can you see how quickly complex these things get? They do. So comparing Gantt charts and Pert charts, not going to go much into this because you should be able to by now be critically thinking and know what's going on. So Gantt chart offers a rapid overview that graphically displays the timing, duration, and progress of each task. Many project managers find Pert charts more helpful for scheduling, monitoring, and controlling a project. You can see why. It gives us more detail, doesn't it? Yeah. Helps us plan much better. So not mutually exclusive techniques. Again, a lot of times, if we're using, by the way, a software application like Microsoft Project, some of you have DreamSpark. You're able to download Microsoft Project. You're able to go in and create these via Microsoft Project. However, okay, Microsoft Project has its little quirks. It will not create them to look as nice as this. In what might we create this? Excel. Right? And there's a video on creating these. Pretty easy to do, to create, you know, to merge a couple boxes and create this. Give it an outline, copy those, paste it over as you need a new box, and move. I highly suggest Excel. Word, some folks will create this in Word, copy and paste. Okay. So not mutually exclusive. Again, a lot of times we'll create both. A software like Microsoft Project would create both. Okay. However, there's work that's done by creating the task list. And if that's not done correctly, the automated process that creates this will not be correct. So IT project involves risks that systems analysts and project managers must address. We got to manage risk. You hear that term all the time in investing, right? Manage risk. So we got to develop a risk management plan and identify the risks. Be realistic. All the way up to our systems analyst gets hit by a bus tomorrow. Is that going to affect the project? It might, right? So one thing we can do with risk is we can look at risk a few different ways, but we can certainly set up a risk matrix, okay? And from this, we can determine the impact on the budget, on the project, on time, on whatever it is, okay? So qualitative risk, what is that? What is qualitative?
Fix the quality of the project.
Quality of the project. Qualitative is what? Something that can be what? Measured. Yeah. Give me an example of a quantitative risk analysis.
Losing days.
Huh?
Losing days.
Losing days, because time is money. Yeah. Create a risk response plan. If this happens, what are we going to do? Okay. Now, how far do we go with this? The bigger the project, the bigger the potential loss, the more time we want to spend. assessing risk, right? I mean, if we have 3 people working on a project that's going to build a little website for someone and they need it in a week, am I going to spend a day analyzing risk? No, I'm just going to get to the project. We do have to monitor risks. And risks change, correct? I mean, is it possible to be working on a project today and have someone come in tomorrow and say, by the way, I've got to take the next 2 months off. I have cancer. Yeah. Yeah. And then the next question you want to ask is, well, can you work from home? Risk management software tools. So most project management software programs, such as Microsoft Project, contain various tools that a project manager can use. The team can make a recommendation regarding the risks. Maybe, does IT have a lot of turnover? Go look. Google it. The industry standard turnover rates. The BLS calculates the nation's overall turnover rate. 2013 was 38%. 38% of your staff is going to turn over. Lowest turnovers, let's see, 2013 companies had turnover rates ranging from 1 to 21% with a mean of 8.2%. Median showed that half companies' turnover was 9.5% and half below 9.5%. Most likely is. Rate in 2013, so you would assume they're doing it annually. Do we have to calculate that into our project? Yeah. If I've got a staff of my whole IT department's working on that, 3.8 of my employees are going to quit within the year. Yeah. Any idea how you know if they're going to quit? Just go into their personal folder on your network, find their resume, and see the last time they updated it. Y'all think I'm kidding. I'm not. Depending on the nature and magnitude of risk, the final decision might be made by management. Can we move forward based on how risky the project is? So, of course, the better we mitigate risk, the better we manage our project, the more likelihood the project's going to be completed on time, within budget, etc. So must keep track of the tasks, the projects of the team, compare actual progress with the project plan. Do you see that we can have a project manager that really doesn't work much on the project, but manages the project? I don't know if this is necessarily the case, but it's my understanding that, for example, at Nike, they have project managers that may be managing as much as 20 projects at a time, because all they do all day is manage the project. Go out and query the programmer who's supposed to be done today. Are you? No. I'll be done by Thursday. Okay, and make the adjustment. A structured walkthrough of the project, called design reviews, code reviews, or testing reviews. Do we take somebody's word on it? And we want to see it. You ever buy a car sight unseen? Probably not. So maintaining a schedule, project schedule can be, a challenging task because, again, we're dealing with that human factor, right? And we're dealing with risk and we're dealing with change. Change is constant. One of my favorite, I can't remember who said it, but everyone supports change until it affects what? Me or them. Yeah. The better the original plan, the easier it will be to control the project. Remember I said, the more time you spend planning, the less time you need to do the project. If our documentation is good, if our requirements document is good, if our pseudocode is good, if we know that we can get the hardware at this time, we know we can get the programmers done, the more we plan, the better potential success we have. And still, companies that do this all day long, remember our national average, 70%. Projects fail. That's money invested that never produces a dime. Put that on the bottom line. Bad debt created by ourselves. How often are you going to do that? Enough milestones and frequent checkpoints exist. Problems will be detected rapidly. Okay. Not only can we detect things, but remember, we also want to celebrate the milestones. We just don't want to celebrate every day. Yay, another day of work. Or maybe we do. I mean, if you're only productive 3 hours a day, maybe I will spend 2 hours a day celebrating your 3 hours of work. I don't know. Now, we all sit here and complain about salaries going down, correct? But think about that. Productivity, if productivity is going down, can I pay you just as much for 3 hours of work as I would if you actually worked 5? No. Project managers often spend the most of their time tracking the tasks along the critical path. We then report. We'll report to, we'll gather information from team members. We'll create reports. Those reports will go out to management, collect, verify, organize, evaluate the information. Make sure it's factual. Oh, database administrator, have you finished the database? Oh, sure have. Great, show it to me. Oh, well, I didn't exactly complete it. I thought you meant, did I have the plan completed? No, I see on the project timeline, you were supposed to be done with the database. Uh-huh. How does next Tuesday work for you? And then we report to management, and remember, always report back to the people who gave you the information, as well as management and people who are users, stakeholders in our project. Yeah, they're waiting for it. And if we've included them, hopefully they're excited about what's coming. Nothing worse than that scuttlebutt that comes out. Oh yeah, I heard the project's behind schedule. Oh yeah, I heard the interfaces are terrible. Oh yeah, I heard like they can't even get the data in the system. All that stuff gets out to end users. What's their perception when they get the product? Yeah, it's all those superlatives that you all just used. So must report regularly on immediate supervisor, upper management, user, whoever they require to report to. Should explain what you're doing to handle or monitor the problem. If there is a problem, a challenge, as I like to call it, what are you doing to solve it? Don't keep that information. So many times, because it's our project, it's our thing, we don't want to tell people that there's problems. And so we don't. And so then more problems come up and more problems come up and more problems come up. Right? And pretty soon it implodes and management had no idea. Most managers recognize that problems do occur on most projects. It's better to alert management sooner rather than later. You bet. Have the courage to do that. Definitely. Have the courage to report. Okay. Could mean your job. It's amazing how many times in our society we just don't accept failure. But how many quotes exist from people who have been successful in our book? Like, fail and fail often. Right? If you're not willing, my favorite, if you're not willing to fail, you'll never succeed. Have you all seen that? There's a video on failure that Lucille Ball and Jordan and all that. Y'all seen that? Okay, somebody remind me when we're done with the lecture. We'll look at it. Project manager software examples. Yeah, Microsoft Office Project 2013. Y'all can download that for free. Open Workbench. There's open source software. There's even some cloud-based project management that you can use. Trial versions if you like. Folks, if you're going to use the management software in this class, please let it be Microsoft Project. Okay? I don't really want to get Project and Open Workbench and this and that and the other and blah, blah, blah. Okay? Just makes it difficult to grade some of your assignments. Either that or if you're going to use something unique, just take screenshots from it and put it into your homework. Okay? So sample project using Microsoft Project and Open Workbench. So here, what kind of chart are we looking at?
Yeah.
Gantt. That makes sense. Okay. And here, notice how this PERT chart differs, right? Okay. So one thing you can do is in the title of the task, you could put a number for the task in the title of the task. Okay. That's what I used to do. So in my undergraduate project, we never took the project to fruition, but 4 of us in my undergraduate capstone project created a golf course management scheduling software. Sorry, I was about to say management software, and then that's what we thought we were going to do. And then our instructor, because you had 2 terms or 20 weeks to do this in, went, which part of that do you want to do? And so we picked just the web-based scheduling part and barely got it done. So a procedure for processing requests for changes. Yeah, we definitely want everything documented. We certainly don't want an end user coming up to IT, to the person that they know is programming it and saying, you know, I just had this crazy idea that if this screen changed to look like that, and the programmer goes, oh, yep, I can do that. And nobody knew about that change. And then when I go ask the programmer if you're going to be done in time, oh, no, someone gave me a change. Was it approved? Take an initial action on the request. My favorite initial action on any request is, I'll get back to you. I never say yes or no in the moment, ever. Because then I've committed to something, right? As it pertains to a project. I'm not saying I'm afraid of commitment. I'm not. Okay, no, I'm kidding. Okay, so analyze the impact of the requested change. Again, what's it going to take? How much money? How much time? Do we need more resources? Determine the disposition of the requested change. The disposition, does it go in the round file or does it get added to the project documentation? So keys to project success. Business issues. Business is number 1. This is who we're doing this for. We are doing it for 2 reasons. What are they? Either to what or to what? Make money or save money. I did find out just yesterday, I was talking to the lady who runs the HIT department, came to curriculum and was talking about the fact that it was supposed to be by 2016 that every single medical facility was supposed to be on an electronic medical records program, software. Still today, they're having to teach manual electronic medical record, HIT, health information technology techniques. They're still teaching paper because half of the industry is still on paper. Okay, folks, go out, pick an EMR software, learn it well, start consulting, say ching ching. Okay, got it? Okay. Just like the whole Y2K thing. The stories of my uncle and dad at the time and how much money they made just going in and modifying the ability for date ranges to include something past 1999. And what do you think happened? What do you think they did with their rates per hour as they got closer to that? Yeah. Okay. I'm talking like Moore's law increases. Okay. The closer we get, we double. You know, thousands of dollars an hour to go in and do an hour's worth of work. System that falls short of the business. Oh, things would have happened had that not have been done. You bet. Systems would have crashed. You bet. Because if a system doesn't understand 2000, what does it do with the date? It might go back to 0, or it might go back to just 1 year to 0/1/1999 because I don't know anything past that. The system that falls short of business needs also produces problems for users and reduces employee morale and productivity. Yeah. So remember I told you that nice little story about Lumberman's Insurance and the Linux when we were using Windows? We finally got the Windows version. Did I tell you that I would wait 3 patches before installing stuff? Just because I knew that this patch would fix stuff that was broken in that patch that would fix stuff that was broken in the previous patches. So here we were working, we were efficient on our little command line, DOS-based system. Everybody knows how to use it. We are producing business. Here comes this Windows software that crashes on an every other day basis. Guess when it crashed? During the 3 hours that my employees were going to be, that the employees, not my employees, were going to be most productive. I would hate to think how much money, besides just what they lost in canning the system while still paying for it. That was the real tangible part. But to calculate the lost productivity, you know, can a project like that take down a business? Yes, it can. So cost overruns typically result from one or more of the following. So unrealistic estimates. You know, I figured out for myself, remember I said, if I calculate a project to be 12,000, I'm going to quote it at 24,000 and then hope I still make money. You know, now why did I do that? I finally got to where when we started doing similar projects, I started to know what that was going to take. Now, where do we see this, you know, taken to a T? My favorite example is automobile dealerships. When you take your car in to be worked on, say for a set of brakes, they know how long that takes. Do you know why? Because the person doing it is certified to do it. They're certified to do it how many ways? One way. So whether I go to the Ford dealership in Prineville, the Ford dealership, you know, here in Bend, the Ford dealership in Klamath, they've all been certified to do brakes in one way. There's an instruction sheet that the mechanic is going to follow. You will go get this and this and this and this. You will lay it out in this order and you will do these things. Why? Because we figured out how to do that. How many ways, if you work at McDonald's, is there to make a hamburger? Well, there's 2, actually. There's McDonald's way or the way you get fired. Those are the 2. Right? You think they've figured out how to do that efficiently? Yeah. Do you think they still work on increasing that process? You bet. So failure to develop an accurate total cost of ownership forecast. Oh yeah, should only cost us 20 grand over 5 years. Well, we're 50 grand in the hole and it's 3 years in. Poor monitoring of progress, inadequate reaction to early signs of problems. What was the one question that I said, ask yourself every single day? Is today the day that we stop the project? Schedule delays due to unanticipated factors, human resource factors. Oh, company's not making money and we got to furlough 10% of the employees from each department. Oh, great. There goes one of my IT staff who did something. Now someone else has to do their job, right? Yeah. Scheduling issues, problems with timetables, project milestones can indicate a failure to recognize task dependencies. So here's that idea that today at 5 o'clock, we're supposed to be here and we realize we're 2 days behind. Well, we need to go figure out why we're 2 days behind, right? What's causing the delays? Personality conflicts among team members? Yes. Sometimes the best thing you can do is fire the person that's being a challenge on a project. Maybe they are an awesome programmer if they don't have to work with Bill. But as soon as you get the two in the room, forget about it. Nothing gets done. Who would have thought, right? So when problems occur, project managers' ability to handle the situation becomes the critical factor. Do you see why a lot of the things that are listed in your professional success skills on the syllabus have nothing to do with IT? Effective communication, conflict resolution. Projects experience delays, cost overruns. The system can be delivered on time and within budget if several less critical requirements are trimmed. So if we do need to meet that date for whatever reason, let me give you an example. By January 1st, 2016, we have to have an EMR system in here. Does it need to be exactly what we want? It just needs to be an EMR system. Put it in, fix it later, right? And avoid that tax penalty. By the way, that'll never happen. I mean, figure it out, folks. How is it that we can expect private companies in the US to be successful at doing this project management when everything we see from our government is what? Over budget and over time, or fails completely? National Healthcare website. So lack of resources, management might be willing to give the project more commitment, higher priority. Remember I said at the get-go, just having upper management come in and represent, hey, this is an important project, can really get people focused on it. Do we get unfocused?
All the time.
Really? You do? I never do. Oh, look at that spider. Oh, cool. Anyway.
Shining.
Yeah, it's black. Wonder if it's poison. Ow, it bit me. We'll find out in a few minutes. Typical response is to push back the completion date. But again, maybe that's not the option. Now, one of the terrible practices we can get into is pushing back the date, pushing back the date, pushing back the date. Because then that becomes habit, right? And then pretty soon everybody goes, just push it back again. So option, of course, only if the original target date is flexible and the extension will not create excessive costs or other problems. So that's where we're at. Things look good. See y'all later.